Michael De Palma. I'm here at TAFE, Nirimba College, to show you the correct way to operate a forklift truck. Today, we're going to be covering site inspections, which will include hazard identification and correct control methods, pre-operational checks, pre-startup checks, safe operating procedures, and correct shutdown procedures. So let's get going. So, prior to operating a forklift truck, a site inspection must be completed to identify hazards that may be an issue. Some hazards may include overhead service lines, power lines, surrounding buildings, doorways, pedestrians, uneven surfaces, inclines, and weather. Correct measures must be utilised. Correct signage. Once you have those measures in place, you should be right to go. So it's really important that we carry out a complete site assessment and identify hazards where necessary and take the right measures to control them, because if we don't, we could miss things which could result in serious injury or even death to yourself and other people. Prior to operating a forklift truck, the correct PPE must be worn. Today, we only require the minimum PPE, which includes a high-vis vest and steel cap boots. Other sites may require you to wear other PPE, which could include a hard hat, safety glasses, hearing protection, maybe even gloves. So be sure to understand which PPE you require to utilise on the site that you're on. We now need to conduct a pre-operational check on the forklift truck. I preferably like to start on the front of the machine, and it's commonly known as the once walk around, where you walk all the way around the machine and check all the parts as you go. You end up back in one spot and you know that you're not going to miss anything. So starting at the front of the machine, I like to check the fork arms first. Firstly, the security, make sure that they're locked in and they're not going to slide along the bridge. Check the condition of the fork arms. Check that there's no cracks on the hills. Also the condition, make sure there's no burrs and also they're not bent. Have a good look underneath the front of the machine. Check for any oil leaks. We can better check that once we get on and conduct a pre-start check, where we get on, move the machine backwards, checking our brakes. We can have a better look then. Check the side shift cylinder. Check the seals for no leaks, the connection points, and no leaks on the hoses. We then check the load guard. Some people call this a backrest. We check the security on all 4 bolts and the structure, all the welds, no damage. We then check the tension on the chain. Make sure that they've got even tension and there's not one that's too loose. Check the hoses, the hydraulic hoses, for any oil leaking down them or any damage. Where the chains come up over the pulleys, make sure that they come down and that there's locking nuts on each side. With the main lifting cylinder, check for no oil leaks coming out of the seal. Moving up to the mast, check warning decals. Check down inside where the rollers are. There's no debris and that those rollers are going to travel freely up inside. The hoses inside the mast, that they go over the pulleys, and the condition of the hoses, there's no oil leaks coming down those. Moving around, we come to the outside of the mast and we check the welds, the structure. There's no cracks in them. We check the lifting cylinders, the secondary lifting cylinders. There's no oil leaks coming out of the seals. Also it's security and the hoses coming down over these pulleys, down to these connection points and right down in behind the mast. Whilst we're here, we check the tilt cylinder. Again, no leaks around any of the seals, the security, and also the keeper plates. They are well greased. Moving down to the front wheel. These are pneumatic tyres, so we're checking the correct pressure on all 4 tyres. We also check the wheel nuts, that none are loose. On other machines, you will find solid rubber tyres, and on those tyres, you're checking for big chunks, splits, uneven wear, but with these ones, it's the pressure. With the footstep, make sure it's free from debris, not going to slip on it, nice and clean. With the overhead guard, checking the structure, no cracks in the welds, all the way down. On the overhead guard and on both sides, we have mirrors, checking that they're nice and clean, not cracked. The condition of the blinkers and the headlights. Moving down inside the machine here, we check the tilt rams where they come through, that there's no oil leaks on the connection points, the keeper plates are there, well greased, no damage. On all pedals, we check that the rubbers are on the pedals. Moving up to the seat, we check the security of the seat and also the seat belt, that it actually locks. Coming over the top of the overhead guard here, we've got the dust filter. We've got the brake lights, we've got our flashing light, and also the other light on this side. For any damage, no cracks. We then check the back wheel. Again, checking the condition, good pressure, wheel nuts are all secure. Nice even wear. Staying at the back of the machine, we can have a good look underneath the machine for any oil leaks. We check down up inside here, the counterweight bolt, that it's nice and secure. With the gas bottle, we check firstly that it's secure, that it's in date. We then turn the gas on, 1.5 turns only. We can smell or listen for any gas leaks. We also check that there's gas in the bottle. Another important thing is to check the hoses and the connection points on that gas system. Coming back down to the rear tyre, exactly like the other side, we check even wear, check the wheel nuts, no big chunks out of the tyre or cracks if they were solid rubber. Checking the overhead guard on this side for its structure. Checking the controls, there's no major movements in them, and also the control decals on top, which control is what. Very important to check the data plate. Firstly, it needs to be attached and it needs to be legible. If we have a look down inside this area, we'll find the installation for the gas system on this machine, and it's been installed properly. One of the last things we check is the tyre. Again, just like the other side, we check each wheel nut for security, the tyre for its condition, and as we checked on the other side, we do check the tilt cylinder, again for its any leaks, the connection points, keeper plates, all the hoses and connection points on this side, security of this cylinder, no leaks, the condition of the mast. And that brings us round back to the front of the machine where we started and completes the pre-operational checks. The next thing we need to move on to is we need to open up the hood and actually check the liquid levels on this machine and oil levels. Okay, now we've completed our walk around. We've now opened up the hood of the machine, and I'm going to now identify where the liquid levels are and the oil levels. Okay, so underneath the foot plate here, we have our transmission fluid. All right. On some other machine types, you'll have brake fluid, but that's not on this machine. Down here, we have our hydraulic oil. It's at a nice high level. Okay, here we have our dust filter. And just over the side of the dust filter here, we have our engine oil. high, low, so good level. This machine also has two water levels. I will just go around the other side of the machine to show you those. Here we have our coolant overflow bottle. And the battery. Generally, batteries have water levels in them. This is a maintenance-free battery. With the battery also, very important to check the security. It's not going to fall over, and also the terminals are nice and clean. And they're the oil levels for the forklift truck. Now that we've completed our pre-operational checks and our walk around, we now need to conduct a pre-start check. This is where we get onto the machine, check all the electrical components and all the moving parts. I'm going to demonstrate that to you now. First up, we need to use our 3 points of contact. Very important not to hold onto the steering handle. Use our footstep, mounting handle on the seat, up we climb. First thing we do, must put on our seatbelt. Once we've done that, get some ignition, we'll check all electrical components. So I'll start with the lights, blinkers on both sides. I'm now going to start the machine to check the brake lights and other warning devices. Brake lights, flashing light, the horn, and also check the gauges. Before we actually start moving off on this machine, we need to check all lifting components. I'll demonstrate that now. Full back tilt, full forward tilt, and it's very important to bring the mast back to a vertical position. Then need to do full side shift, both directions and back to the center. Now going to raise the mast to its full extent. All the while checking that the chains, hoses are running over those pulleys freely. And for any unusual noises. As you can see, I've selected the correct travel position with the fork arms. They're below the front axle height and close to the ground. I'm now going to engage the forward gear with my foot on the brake, and I'm going to check the handbrake. By simply releasing the foot on the pedal, it holds, that's fine. Release my handbrake. I'm going to check over both shoulders. It's a good idea to check your back wheels are straight. We know the area is clear around us. We're going to proceed forward to check the brakes. Front brakes are good. We're now going to do the same in reverse. Checking over both shoulders, always watching your travel direction. Rear brakes are great. The last thing we need to check is the steering on this machine. We need to do that by utilising the steering wheel in both directions to its full degree. Once again, always checking over your shoulders for any pedestrians. And that brings us to the completion of pre-start checks. So now I'm going to select the correct travel position with the fork arms prior to moving off. Release my handbrake, put the machine into forward gear and travel as squarely as I can up to the racking system. All in while keeping a distance away from the racks, so as you raise the forks up, you're not going to collect other pallets in the racking system. Now that I have my position, I'm selecting a neutral gear, applying the handbrake, making sure that the mast is in a vertical position prior to raising. Now that all those things are in place, I'm now going to raise the forks to the required height. Now I'm at the required height, I'm going to release my handbrake, apply the machine into forward gear and travel into the pallet. Now that we're all the way into the pallet, I'm going to raise the pallet and apply a slight back tilt. Now that we have the pallet in the correct position to reverse, we have two danger points we need to be aware of prior to reversing. That is that the pallet is going to be coming back with you as you're reversing and not getting caught in the racking system. Release our handbrake, apply the reverse gear, checking over both shoulders in the direction and the load all at the same time, and slowly reverse away out of the rack. Now that we're in the right position and clear from the rack, we've applied our handbrake, the machine's in a neutral gear, we're going to now lower the load down to the required travel position. Now that we're in the correct travel position, which is just off the ground surface and no higher than halfway up the front axle, we can release our handbrake, apply reverse gear and commence travelling. So prior to reversing off, we need to ensure that we check over both shoulders to make sure that no pedestrians have approached the machine. Whilst travelling in a forklift truck, it's very important to always check over both your shoulders and do a visual check all around, ensuring that no other vehicles are entering your site, no other pedestrians are approaching your machine, all in while keeping the load at a nice low level to the ground. So at the end of the day, once you've finished operating your forklift truck, you must ensure that it's parked in a secure location, that you've removed the key, applied the handbrake, selected a neutral gear, make sure the forks are on the ground, the back wheels are straight, and the gas bottle is switched off. The location where these machines should not be parked is in front of firefighting equipment, first aid stations, access ways, walkways, emergency exit doors, and on blind corners. So that brings us to the end of our training. Today we've covered off on site inspections, all the safe operating procedures for a forklift truck, as well as shutdown procedures. I hope this video assists you in becoming safe and competent operators.